Welcome to this video on Ganesha, on how he got that elephant head, what does it mean, and how did he become the firstborn son of Shiva when he is really the second adopted son. So first off, what's up with that elephant head? So a long time ago in Indian mythology, Shiva was off meditating for eons and eons, and his wife Parvati was very lonely as her first son Skanda was off in South India defeating demons. So she was all alone and she really wanted a family, she really wanted some company, and more than anything, she wanted somebody that would do anything that she said and would obey every command without question. So she went underneath the wish-fulfilling tree and she took some of the earth and she infused it with her spirit, with her breath, and she made a wish for this doll, this clay-formed being that she had created. And with the wish-fulfilling tree, with the breath of her spirit, this clay emanation from the earth came to life, and she named it Vinayaka. So Vinayaka was the perfect boy. He did everything his mother told without question. One day she said to Vinayaka, "I want you to guard the entrance to my cave and don't let anybody in while I go inside and take a bath." So Vinayaka said, "No problem, Mom. I'm going to guard the entrance. Nobody's getting through." And then Shiva comes home, and Shiva's covered in ash. He's covered in a tiger skin as clothing. He's got his dreadlocks going on, and he's got his trident, and he's walking home, and he wants to go inside and see his wife, Parvati, and he notices that there's some young boy at the entrance to this cave, and so he's like, "Hey, hello, how's it going?" And he's like, "Hey, you can't come in." And he's like, "Well, why not?" And he's like, "Well, because my mom said that nobody could come into this cave, and I'm guarding it for her so she has privacy." And he says, "Well, this is my cave, this is my home, she's my wife." And Vinayaka's like, "Well, no way. My mom she's a princess. She's super beautiful. And look at you. You're covered in ash. You have dreadlocks. You smell terrible. Like you look like you're from the forest. Like there's no way my mom would be with you." And so Shiva's like immediately taken back and slightly offended. And so he tries to reason with Vinayaka, and Vinayaka is not having it. And so Shiva retreats, and he says to Nandi, "Hey, Nandi," who is Shiva's #1 devotee, Nandi the bull. And so he says, "Nandi, go try and talk some sense into this boy. Let him know that I am who I say I am. I am the husband of Parvati, and I want to go home. I want to go see my wife." And so Nandi tries to reason with Vinayaka, and Vinayaka ends up insulting Nandi and starting to get a little violent. And so he starts to offend all of the Ganas, all of the devotees of Shiva. And so when Shiva sees this, and he tries to reason with the boy again, and he realizes that the boy just doesn't have any intelligence, because like a child, they take everything literally. Like everything is either black or white, yes or no. If you tell a child, "I'll be back in a second," they'll say one, you know. So you have to be very clear and specific. And so when his mom said nobody can come in, she didn't mean that her husband couldn't come in, but Vinayaka didn't know the difference. He wasn't able to think with discrimination, with intelligence. And so Shiva realized this boy didn't have any intelligence. He didn't have any brains because he came from dirt. And so Shiva, to quote him, said he had a dirty mind. So he took his trident and he threw it at Vinayaka and severed his head. And of course, right at that moment when the head is like tumbling off, Parvati comes out of the cave and sees the head of her son rolling away, and she's mortified and starts screaming, and she's like, "Oh my God, what have you done? Put the head back on my boy. Like, what are you doing? You've killed my son." So in that moment, Shiva realized that he had made a mistake, that the boy belonged to the family, and he didn't know, and Vinayaka didn't know. And so he's like, "Look, I would put the head back on, but I can't, because anything severed by my trident, like it stays severed. You can't reattach things. That's not how it works." And she says, "Well, you better go find some head to put back on my boy, or I'm going to destroy everything in the universe and destroy all of creation." And so with that, like, clouds start to form and the earth starts to shake and everybody gets terrified that the goddess is, going to lose it and go into rage mode, into Kali, into full destruction. And so they go out into the woods and they come across an elderly elephant that had acquired siddhis, supernatural powers. He had acquired boons from all of the tapasya, all the spiritual work that he had done, and he had acquired lots of knowledge. And just like we say, an elephant never forgets, he had read or memorized all the Vedas, all the sacred texts, and so this elephant was the perfect candidate for his head to be placed onto Vinayaka. So different traditions may refer to this elephant by different names. In the Skanda Purana, it is Gajasura, an asura who had acquired a boon from Shiva. And in other traditions, it is Airavata, the elephant of Indra. And in other traditions, the elephant is just unnamed. And in some folklore traditions, it is actually a young elephant. So in either case, the elephant offered up its head, and they took the head, they put it onto Vinayaka, and Vinayaka came back to life, and they realized he needed a new name, and so they called him Ganesh, or Ganesha, taken from two words, Gana, meaning group, multitude, an assembly, or in reference to the Ganas, the devotees of Shiva, and Isha is Lord. So the Lord, or the divine being, the leader of the Ganas, the leader of a group of the multitude, Ganesha. So he is the leader of all devotees, and he is the leader of all gods and goddesses. Ganesha was also referred to as a lord of wealth, one who generated abundance and prosperity, as he had a big, robust belly that showed his opulence, that he had lots of resources, he had lots of food, and then was thus a suggestion, a symbol of having wealth. So Ganesha was honored, he was prayed to remove any obstacles from the path, and also to generate wealth and abundance in one's life. Ganesha first appeared in central India around the 4th to 5th century of our current era. His popularity spread rapidly because he was known as the remover of obstacles, as nothing can stand in the path of an elephant. They just plow right through, or they push it through with their tusks or their huge trunk, or they remove anything from their path and they just carry on. So nothing can block an elephant. So energetically, they remove anything from your path so that you have clear passage. Now, what does that elephant head mean? Because having an elephant head on a human body doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And it invites us not to take anything literally or too seriously, but to look for the deeper encoded symbolic meaning, and that things aren't necessarily just black and white, that there's actually a gray area that requires intelligence and discrimination to negotiate. So here we go. The elephant head, he has a long trunk for deepening the ujjayi, the victorious breath that we use in yoga. So long, deep inhales. Long, complete exhales. Big elephant ears for listening to the quality of the breath, as 99% of doing ujjayi correctly is listening to the quality of the breath and matching the resonant pattern of the inhale with the sound exactly the same, with the exhalation with equal length and duration for the inhale and the exhale, with a conscious pause between the breaths. Ganesha, the elephant, has a small mouth for less talk and more action. And again, the elephant head on the human body doesn't make any sense. So don't take anything too literally or too seriously, but to engage the practice seriously. Ganesha, his vehicle is a small bandicoot, a small rat that he rides, which again doesn't make any sense. You can't have some boy with an elephant head riding some tiny little mouse, like it doesn't really work out. So it's completely symbolic. So just like all of this, none of it is literal. It all has philosophical, symbolic meaning, so that when we see it, it reminds us of the deeper meaning, and then we stay in remembrance, or we apply it to our life. So elephants, they have no natural predators in the world. Nothing is going to attack and kill an elephant, right? They're too big and too strong and powerful. But they are, for no reason at all, terrified of small mice. So this shows that Ganesha has overcome his natural instincts, his natural fears, and he embraces them. So it's not about being fearless, because being fearless doesn't mean being absent of fear, but it means that you have the courage to embrace the fear. So Ganesha embraces the fear, and he rides the small rat, the small mouse, as his vehicle, which shows that, again, that he's overcoming his natural instincts of fear, and he's using his intelligence to move forward, cultivating a fearless attitude, moving forward on the path. Ganesha is often represented holding a bowl of sweets, of ladus, with sometimes his trunk moving over in that direction, which shows that he is manifested and he has accomplished his goals, and now he is attaining the reward. In other Ganeshas, he is holding an axe and a noose in two of his hands. So this is for discernment and discrimination and dissection. So he, again, is a Lord of knowledge, the Lord of wisdom. So he's not only a Lord of wealth, but just like I said earlier, an elephant never forgets, and so he's referred to as a Lord of knowledge and wisdom. So whenever we're learning something, then we have to break it down, right? We have to dissect it. So Ganesha uses the axe for cutting things into small pieces so that they can be analyzed and they can be studied. And then once they're understood in small parts and small sections, he uses that rope and he ties it all together and creates a synthesis. So that's how we create learning. We break things down in small pieces, small parts that can then be understood, and then it all comes together as a whole and makes sense. So the axe is also for cutting through attachments. The rope also symbolizes Ganesha's power to pull devotees closer towards the divine, to bind or restrain the ego, and then also to reveal any attachment. Ganesha, the Lord of wisdom, the remover of obstacles, uses the axe for cutting through any attachments, to break through any obstacles, but he also places obstacles on your path. So it is through obstacles, it is through challenges in life that when we overcome them, we become stronger, we become smarter, we're able to negotiate life's difficulties with greater ease. So when you have an obstacle on your path, you don't just pray for some external force to remove it for you. No, you draw upon your own inner strengths, you draw upon your own resources, and you learn how to overcome that obstacle skillfully. So that's why Ganesha is the remover of obstacles, but he also places them on your path because it's through them that you learn how to grow spiritually. So you don't treat any obstacles as something bad or something to get discouraged about or to get negative about, but instead you want to maintain positivity in the face of adversity, and you can draw upon the Lord of hosts, the leader who can clear your path for you. You can draw upon the strength of Ganesha universally as a spiritual energy, but then you also want to tap into that power, that energy within you. Now, how did Ganesha become the firstborn son of Shiva when Shiva didn't have anything to do with his creation? He was adopted by Shiva after Shiva had already given birth to Skanda. So Skanda was born to defeat the three demons Taraka, Simhamukha, Surapadma. He was off in the south of India defeating demons, and he got word that he now had a brother, and he's like, I didn't know had a brother. Who's this guy? Who's this Ganesh that I keep hearing about? And so Skanda was like, well, I have to go home and I need to meet my brother. And so he went back home, and Shiva and Parvati, Ganesha and Skanda are all together, and they decided that they need to invite all of the gods and goddesses and just have a big party, because it was a big family reunion and the brothers were just meeting for the first time, and they wanted to have a great celebration. So everybody's having a great time at the party, and then Narada, the instigator, the troublemaker, the drama king, shows up and goes to Shiva, and he's like, Shiva, you've got 2 pretty impressive sons. And Shiva's like, yep. And he's like, which one of them is the fastest? And he's like, what is that? Who cares? Who cares who's the fastest? And he's like, well, I think that, me and the rest of the gods here, like, we want to know, like, who's the top brass? Like, who deserves the greatest honor? Like, who should we follow? And Shiva, like, thinks about it, and he's like, well, okay, all right, let's put him to a race. And he's like, all right, and he's like, I'll offer up the prize. And so Narada offers up this golden mango, which was a symbol for perfection, the ideal attainment. And so Shiva says, boys, come here. And they come over and they create a little starting line, and he says, you guys are going to go on a race around the world. And the first one to complete going all the way around the world will get this golden mango. And so Skanda's like, oh yeah, I got this in the bag. I've got my peacock. I'm going to be able to fly. This is going to be a breeze. Ganesha's got his small mouse to ride, Mushaka, and he realizes there's no way I'm going to go around the world on this thing. So they start the race, and Skanda takes off flying on his peacock, and he looks back over his shoulder, and he sees his brother still sitting there at the starting line, and he's like, there's no way this guy, he's not even going to compete. I've got this race won. So he stops at the temples, and he's doing puja, he's getting into the ritual, he's having picnics, he's stopping at museums, he's going on tours, he's having a great time. It's a vacation for him. He eventually makes it all the way around the world. Now, during this time, Ganesha has a flash of insight, and he realizes that his parents had told him that they were the world for him. And so he realizes that, hey, his parents are actually the god and the goddess who have created all there is in the entire universe, and they are everything in the world for him. They are his world. And so if he goes around them, like, a few times, then he will have gone around the world. So that's what he does. He goes around, his parents, and he's on the small rat, and Parvati looks down and is just like, oh, he's so cute, he's going around us, he's the winner. And Shiva's like, no, that doesn't count. And she's like, yes, it does. And so they kind of like almost get into an argument, but Shiva's smart, and he's not going to get into an argument with the goddess over a trivial matter like this. And so he says, all right, fine, we'll give them the mango. And so all of the gods and goddesses, they start to celebrate Ganesha. And because he was so wise, he had made such an intelligent decision to go around his parents, because they had created everything in the world, and for them, they were his world. Since he was so wise, then they gave him the title of the firstborn son, because the firstborn son is supposed to be smarter. He's supposed to have more wisdom. And so since Ganesha displayed this wisdom, then he was then referred to as the firstborn son, even though he's the second adopted son. So Ganesha represents the path of Jnana Shakti, the path of knowledge and wisdom, and Skanda represents Bala Shakti, the path of strength and power. So Skanda comes back around the world, and he realizes that not only did he lose the race, but he lost his birthright. And he had that title, the firstborn son, stripped away, and he got furious. He got really upset, and he's like, I'm out of here. I'm done with this family. I'm done with this place. I don't need any of you all. And he leaves, and he goes down south He goes to Palani, India, and he goes up on top of the hilltop and he's just hanging out. and eventually Shiva and Parvati, they go looking for their son, and they reach the hilltop of Palani, and at the base of the mountain they start shouting to him, Pasani, Pasani, which means that you are our fruit, meaning that he is like a golden mango for them. And so when he realized that he is the treasure, that he is the goal, that he is the ultimate attainment, and it's not about something external or having something to show off to your friends, like, hey, look what I won. He realized that he had that power, that energy within him, and he was whole and complete, and he didn't need anything else externally. And so he went down and he made up with his parents, and he reconnected with his brother, and thus Ganesha and Skanda are always together in all the myths and all the stories. So the mango race, there's deeper meaning to this. So again, it's not a literal story. There's lots of symbolism here. And one of the main meanings taken from this is that you honor your parents as your first gurus, as they are your world, your first teachers, and so you should always honor them. Another teaching is that it was Ganesha's dharma to be the leader of the gods and goddesses, to be the leader of the Ganas, the lord of the hosts, and it was Skanda's dharma to defeat demons. So the demons, again, represent negative energies that get transformed into positivity. Ganesha represents the overcoming of obstacles and the attainment of knowledge and wisdom. So they both are energies that then we can tap into and apply into our life. So there's even more. So Skanda is based upon a real historical figure that may have lived between 12 to 5,000 years ago in the South India region. And Ganesha, again, was created out of folk stories, out of local traditions, as a guardian, as a protective deity around central India, and he gained popularity starting around the 4th to 5th century. So there is no elephant-headed person. That doesn't make sense. He came from the imaginary realm or the ideas of Brahmin priests, and so he represents a spiritual ideal, whereas Skanda represents a physical being that was actually on the planet Earth as a warrior who defeated a bunch of invading pirates from invading a village, and thus he became honored and celebrated the energy of the spiritual warrior, and that energy persisted throughout history, and more stories, more layers were added to it. So Skanda went around the earth because he was born on the earth and was a real historical person. Ganesha came from the imaginary realm of thought and represents spirit. So he went around spirit beings, god and goddess, and Skanda went around the physical world because he came from the earth, and Ganesha comes from the spirit world. Thus, when you realize that the race was an illusion because Skanda was going around the physical world, Ganesha going around the spirit world, there was no real compatible race that was equal. So, winning and losing are both imposters. And this is a teaching to offer the best of yourself forward, to generate all the best positive karma through your actions, but the end result isn't up to us, and so we should practice being unattached from the fruition of our actions, from the end result, as we're not in full control of everything. And the end result we're always striving for is perfection. We would like the end result of our actions to be perfect. Who doesn't want something to be perfect, you know? But we live in a physical world where things are dissolving and decaying and falling apart and breaking all the time. And so nothing can truly be perfect, and if it is, it won't be perfect for very long. So perfection itself is an illusion also, and in Sanskrit, there's no real word for perfection. There's only the word for fullness, purna. So perfection is also an illusion. We're striving for something that isn't really attainable. And even if we do attain something perfectly, like we did a perfect race, perfect competition in our sport, or we manifested something perfectly through work, and we got a raise, we got all kinds of awards or write-ups, we can still reflect back on it, and we can still look for something that could have been more perfect, that we could have done differently, and it would have been even better. So there's always the ability of our mind, the ego, to reflect on things and to find something that could have been polished a little bit more. So again, this is a story to get out of that egoic thinking of striving for perfection and being dissatisfied with the end result of our actions, because again, they aren't up to us. We offer the best of ourselves forward and into our actions, but again, what happens isn't up to us. We're not in full control of every minute detail and how the universe works. So it invites us to practice vairagya, of surrendering and letting go and being happy with whatever arises. So even if it's imperfect, that is perfect in itself. And so that is the main lesson of the mango race, is to get out of the competition with others, competition with yourself, and to be happy with the end result of your actions, and to be happy with anything that the universe presents for you in the moment, even if it is imperfect. If you're always striving for perfection, if you want things to be perfect, then you will be dissatisfied and disappointed consistently. So to get out of that, you drop the race, you drop the rat race of being in competition with others, being in competition with yourself, and you practice surrendering, letting go, and opening up to something bigger, to the universal. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha.